All right. Hi, everyone, and good evening. This is the Princeton Review's ACT versus SAT, which test is right for you webinar. My name is Anna, and I am with the Princeton Review's National Marketing team, and I will be helping out with this evening's webinar session. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping tips for you. First is that this session will be recorded, so everyone that has registered for this evening's event will receive a recording of this webinar in their email within 24 hours after this evening's presentation. So if you don't feel like you want to take any notes and you just want to sit back and relax and listen to us, by all means, you certainly can do so. The second thing is that all of your lines are muted, so we will not be able to talk to you directly. However, if you do have a question or something you would like to share with us, please go ahead and use the question chat box on your GoToWebinar menu bar. We'll be able to and do our best to try to answer everyone's questions during this evening's presentation. And just so you guys have a better sense of where we're coming from, as I said, my name is Anna and I am with the National Marketing team. I am actually based out of Long Island, New York. And in just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to our presenter this evening, Chris Piane. And Chris comes to us from New Jersey. So you have your Northeast marketing team here with you this evening, and we are excited to share with you all of the information that we know and have learned in regards to which test is going to be right for you, whether it's the ACT or the SAT. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it right over to Chris.
Great. And can you see my screen there, Anna?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Piane. I'm the Regional Director of Outreach for the Princeton Review Northeast region. I started with the Princeton Review first as an SAT student, and then years later became an SAT instructor. And I actually celebrated my 10-year anniversary with the Princeton Review back in September. And I eat, live, and breathe what we're going to be talking about tonight, the SAT and the ACT. I want to help allay your fears, dispel some myths, and answer your questions tonight. And I promise you this is going to be very informative. It's going to be excellent information. So grab your friends, get them on the call. You know, if you're a parent, call up your other parent friends, because this is excellent information that I'm going to be covering with you in the next hour. So without further ado, our agenda, we're going to talk about what is true, what is myth, and compare the two tests. We're going to talk about which test is right for you, and we'll end up at how the Princeton Review can help. If there's something you're hoping to see on this agenda but you don't see it, please feel free to send us questions or comments in the chat box. But I'm confident we're going to cover a ton of great information over the next 45 to 60 minutes. So let's dive in. There is so much misinformation out there, especially now that the SAT has been redesigned. And I've heard everything from the ACT is an easier test to the SAT is the test you take if you want to go to an Ivy League school. And let me tell you, some of you parents on the call are some of the worst offenders when it comes to spreading myths. So I'm calling you out. But you no longer have to be spreading false rumors, because, again, I'm going to arm you with great information, true, great, factual information during this session that you can take to your friends and be the smart kid on the block. So let's start with some facts. Many students and parents don't realize that you can take either the SAT or the ACT. You can take both, and college admissions officers have no preference. So all four-year universities accept either the SAT or the ACT for admissions. Yes, these tests are also used for scholarships, and yes, I mean all schools. And they really do not care which one you take, so the bottom line is you need to make the decision for yourself. And again, you may take both exams, you may take just one of them, and in a little bit I'm going to discuss with you how you can go about making that decision. So let's take a look at the exams side by side, and we'll start with the format. So the ACT is exclusively multiple choice, whereas the SAT is mostly multiple choice. And really what we mean by mostly is that the SAT includes 13 student-produced responses on the math, meaning there's no A through D answer choices on 13 questions on the SAT. Okay? Content areas. There is overlap in the content, but the key takeaway here is even if they call their respective content areas something different, it's basically the same content. The difference is in how that content is tested on one exam over the other, and again, we'll get into that in a bit. Scoring, you'll notice that if you take a quick look, you'll see the difference in the scoring per section. Each section on the ACT is scored on a scale of 1 to 36. Each section on the SAT is scored on a scale of 200 to 800. If you look at timing, the ACT is slightly shorter when you take the essay into account. And when you look at pure number of questions, the ACT has the SAT beat by 61 questions. In other words, it's, ACT has just greater number of questions over the SAT. Okay, let's take a look at a section-by-section analysis, and you'll see English, there are 45 minutes for 75 questions, math 60 minutes, 60 questions, reading 35 minutes, 40 questions, science 35 minutes for 40 questions, on the optional essay 40 minutes for one essay. So let me give you some context here. That means your average time per question on the ACT for the English section, which is really testing on grammar, your knowledge of American Standard Written English, 36 sections on average per question. On math, 60 seconds on average per question. On reading, 52 seconds on average per question. On science, 52 seconds on average per question. So you'll see that most of the sections on the ACT give you, on average, less than a minute to complete each question. And that's not a whole heck of a lot of time. So pacing strategy is imperative. I should also note that the total testing time of 3 hours 35 minutes actually doesn't include the breaks. So you're actually on site for longer when you take into account the time it takes to check in and the breaks. So that's the ACT. Let's check out the SAT. And you'll see on reading, it's 65 minutes, a 65-minute reading section with 52 questions. On writing, it's a 35-minute section with 44 questions. There is a math no calculator section, so I don't know if that strikes fear in the hearts of some of you on this call, but yes, there is a no calculator math section on the SAT, 25 minutes, 20 questions. A math calculator section, 55 minutes, 38 questions, and an essay section, 50 minutes for one essay. So the total testing time clocks in on the SAT at 3 hours and 50 minutes, 154 questions in total. So I'll show you the same breakdown for the SAT, again, to give you some context. That means you're having, on average, 75 seconds per reading question on the SAT, about 48 seconds per writing question, about 75 seconds math no calculator, about 87 seconds on average math with a calculator section. So a bit more time per question on the SAT with very good reason. You are doing a lot more reading on the SAT, even on the math section. And this is absolutely certain on both tests, SAT ACT, they are a heck of a lot different from what you see on your typical high school exam. These tests are marathons, and most students have never taken a test this long. So, stamina, strategy, pacing, test-taking skills are essential. All right, so what do these tests actually measure? And just as importantly, what do they not measure? You know, it's debatable whether or not these tests test what you've learned in high school. You know, on the one hand, both test you on things like algebra and grammar and reading comprehension, and on the other hand, the tests and the content areas, they're tested in a way that is just far less familiar to the typical high school student and much less straightforward. And on top of it, they're both aggressively timed. So when your high school math or history teacher gives you a quiz, typically they want to make sure you have ample time to complete the whole quiz. And that's not the case here on the SAT and the ACT. In fact, many students will not complete either the SAT or the ACT and still come out with a solid score. And that's a teaser for a slide that I'm going to be getting to in just a few minutes. But let's go to what do all these tests actually measure. So, true or false? And what do you think? You can shout it out at your screen. Do these tests measure intelligence? True or false? No, false. They do not. Neither the SAT or the ACT measure your intelligence. So, high school students on this call, do not take your scores personally. How well you do has nothing to do with how smart you are or how creative you are. And really, these are tests that test how well you take the test. I'll repeat that because it's a mouthful. These are tests that test how well you take the test. So, if you get a 1500 on the SAT or a 34 on the ACT, congratulations. You are a solid test taker. You may also be smart, but one thing we know for sure from that score is that you take the test well. Now, if you scored below average, it doesn't mean you're not worthy of college. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get into your top choice college. It means that you haven't, for whatever reason, developed the skills necessary to test well on these sorts of tests. The good news is that both the SAT and the ACT are totally coachable. Okay. Can they be used, these tests, to award aid? And hopefully you're all saying absolutely yes. Okay, great scores can be used for merit awards, and I am a case in point. I took the Princeton Review way back in the day. I improved my score significantly, got a full tuition scholarship to college. So while my peers were walking down the aisle, thousands of dollars in debt, I was debt-free. So yes, absolutely you can get aid, and that's life-changing. Do these tests reflect your GPA in high school? What do you guys think? Not necessarily, okay? Your GPA is much more important. I want to put this in perspective, okay? Number one thing that's important on your application is your GPA, and I'll lump in high school transcript with that as well, okay? Your high school transcript and GPA are the single most important pieces of your college application. They reveal all the academic work that you've completed from freshman year to senior year. And your GPA and your transcript answer the question, have you consistently challenged yourself academically? Have you taken regular courses, honors courses, AP courses, okay? All incredibly valuable information for an admissions officer. And the ACT, the SAT don't reflect any of that. So it's the number one thing we hear from our students and parents. I don't understand it. You know, my child is a 4.0 honors student, but a horrible SAT or ACT test taker. How is this even possible? So unfortunately, in that case, that student has the I'm not so good at testing quality, okay? And the reality is that very few people get super high scores. Thus, while you may be exceptionally capable, the odds are against your achieving a 99% or perfect score. But there is a silver lining, which I will be getting to. Okay, do these admissions tests predict your college GPA? Absolutely not. I have seen no definitive research indicating that these tests are great predictors of how well you'll do in college. Do you know what is a better predictor and probably the best predictor of college success? Your GPA. So that's why GPA is and always will be king. Can these tests, the SAT and ACT, be prepared for? And yes, that's absolutely the case. They're definitely coachable. Proper coaching can increase your scores dramatically, provided you do the work. You know, it's hard to coach increasing someone's intelligence. That's not something we can achieve easily in 6 to 12 weeks. SAT, ACT scores are. I see this. This is my life. I see it every day. Should these tests be prepared for? And hopefully, it's a resounding yes that you're shouting at your computer, because let me ask you this. If you have, and I'm specifically talking to the high school students in the crowd tonight, in the audience tonight, if you have a huge AP history midterm, are you just going to wing it? You know, are you just going to rest on your laurels? Of course not. You're going to put the time in to ace the test, and this is no different. These test scores are still heavily relied on, so you should do some type of preparation, but you need to base it on your goals. Okay, final question. Do these admissions tests test what you've learned in high school? And that's tricky. Both claim that they're rigorously aligned with Common Core standards, which means, in theory, some of what you've learned in high school is tested. But to be sure, that remains to be seen, and for various reasons, these tests are a far cry from your typical high school exam. All right, let's check out scoring and take a little bit of a closer look at how these tests are scored. You'll see the SAT has two sections, math and evidence-based reading and writing. Some people shorten that to math and verbal, but the official title is evidence-based reading and writing. You can earn a scaled score between 200 and 800 points on each of the two sections for a total of 1,600 possible points on the SAT. So yes, it's back to the future. For those of you who remember the old 1,600 scoring model, we kind of deviated from that for a while, and we were on a 2,400 scale, but we've returned with the redesign in 2016. We've returned back to the original scoring of yesteryear. But what about all those other scores? Cross-test scores, sub-scores. So if you've seen an actual SAT score report, you're going to see that there are many data points. And you'll see there are categories called cross-test scores and sub-scores, and I could spend a whole lot of time on those, but I'm not going to, because keep in mind, colleges only look at and judge you by the 200 to 800 scores. That other data is intended to help high school and your section scores. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's take a look at the ACT and how it's scored. You're going to earn one ACT score, 1 to 36 on each test. So English, math, reading, and science each gets a score between 1 and 36. For a composite ACT score, which is an average of these four tests. So usually when people are asking you for your ACT score, they're really referring to your composite ACT score. Again, composite score falls between 1 and 36. The national average is about a 21. So, for example, if you scored a 31 on English, 30 on math, 29 on reading, 30 on science, your composite ACT score would be a 30. Okay, and then the writing test score is scored between 2 and 12 with 4 sub-scores, all between 2 and 12. And just important to note that it might not be clear on this slide, but I just want to note it, that your essay does not affect your total score when it comes to the SAT. It doesn't affect your composite score when it comes to the ACT. Okay? All right. So how do these scores compare? Take a look at the comparison chart. For the most part, and for most students, you will have roughly the same performance on both tests, in which case you have two options, which I will discuss shortly. It's a teaser for a later slide. So what's a good score? And that is the question I get time and time again. We're probably asked this most frequently in our line of work. And what do you guys think? I'll give you a second to think about what's a good score. And it's another tricky question, okay? So a good score is the score that's going to help you get into your top choice school, all right? So again, a good score is not, it's not an arbitrary number that I would ever throw out on a webinar like this. It's something that's good. It's a score that will get you into that top choice school. For some students, that could be a 1090 on the SAT. For others, it needs to be a 1360 on the SAT. For some, it could be a 25 at the ACT or a 31 for others. Here's my best advice. Start doing your research into schools, building your school list, using the great free information on princetonreview.com to do so. And we provide you with info like the average total SAT score, okay, or the average composite ACT score. A good rule of thumb is that to remove the SAT or the ACT as a barrier to entry, because I want to stress this, the SAT and the ACT alone will not get you in. Okay, it will remove the barrier to entry. To remove the barrier to entry and increase your odds of getting in, beat the average SAT or ACT score at the schools you're looking, at the schools you're researching. Oh, but you, and we here at the Princeton Review, want you to get in and get merit scholarship money, like I mentioned earlier, and very often directly from the schools themselves. So in order to do that, you should look at what those incoming freshmen within the 75th percentile scored and aim to beat that. Okay? So again, all this type of information is available on our website. And check this out. This is an actual listing of schools and the average merit aid awarded based on scores. So note that these are minimum scores to qualify for merit aid, okay? And the merit amount is the average merit award per student. So in the case of Santa Clara, this doesn't mean if you get a 31, you'll get $18,000. It's not that linear of a connection. But you'll see that getting a 31 qualifies you for merit aid, and the average merit aid at Santa Clara is over $18,000. So yes, these tests can lead to merit scholarship dollars. So which test is right for you? This is another one of those darn tricky questions because the reality is it's not a simple binary choice anymore. Now it can be a binary choice for some. You know, after doing your research, looking at things like where you plan to apply, their admission standards, the relative competitiveness of your application, you may decide that you will invest all your time, energy in prepping and taking one test, either the SAT or the ACT, and that's a perfectly good strategy. Again, after you've done your research and you've figured out what schools you're interested in and where you fall, okay? But it should not be a binary choice for all students. What do I mean by this? Take this statistic, all right? 30 to 40% of students admitted to Ivy League schools take and submit scores from both the SAT and the ACT. And many highly selective institutions are now encouraging students to take both and submit both, saying it can't hurt, it can only help. So for many of these students, it's perfectly a solid strategy to prep for and take both tests. So the bottom line is, do your research. It's too simplistic for me to paint with a broad brush and say that the choice is always SAT versus ACT. But with all of that said, I'd like to spend some time reviewing some of the differences between the exams. So, first, the SAT tends to be a bit trickier than the ACT, which means that you need to spend more time thinking about the question and what it's asking. And this is part of the reason you should prepare for these tests in earnest. You don't want to waste time reading directions, trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out what the question is asking you on test day. You should go into test day already knowing the question types that will be on the exam, what they're asking you, how to attack them. Because any time you spend wasting reading directions, trying to figure out what the question type is and what you're supposed to do, is time you could be spending nailing the correct answer choices on these tests and finishing the section. So you'll see some of the differences in reading and math here. And the main point, I won't belabor this, but I just want to say the main point of this is the fact that the timing is different. And again, this punches the point that really you have less average time per question on the ACT. So you're working at a quicker clip when it comes to the ACT. Which, again, for some students, that might turn you off. You might be a student like I was. I liked having more time per question, in which case you might lean more in favor of the SAT. The ACT has a science section, okay? So the key takeaway here is you don't need to have a deep knowledge of science in order to do well on this section. In fact, I haven't been in a science course in forever, like a legitimate science course in forever, and I can take the ACT science reasoning test and do perfectly fine. So it's really like a glorified reading comprehension question. For this part, you should prepare or be prepared to read and interpret charts and graphs. But again, if science sends you screaming into the night and you are a real just science phobe, then you may lean more heavily towards the SAT. My best advice here is take a practice test, okay? Take a practice test, see if the science part of the ACT really is all that scary. Don't just make assumptions based on how you do in high school chem class, because it's not necessarily going to correlate to how you perform on ACT science. Okay, so on both exams, the essay is optional, but our advice is to take them, okay? The reason is simple. At the time that you are taking the test, you don't necessarily know the schools you're applying to, and you may realize that after the fact that you're applying to a school that actually wants to see the SAT essay or the ACT essay, but not knowing beforehand, you want to make sure you cast the widest net possible, because the last thing you want to do is to have to return to take an SAT or ACT test after the fact because you didn't take the time to take the essay when you were there initially. So we definitely recommend that you take the essay. Just some quick differences between the SAT and the ACT essay. The College Board has shifted the SAT essay task from one that asks you to make an argument to one that asks you to dissect an argument. So it's actually similar in a way to the AP History DBQ, document-based questions, for all you AP History folks on the call. More similar, think that it's more similar to that type of question. And you are graded on 3 dimensions, reading, analysis, and writing. Each dimension receives a score between 2 and 8. And again, none of this actually goes into your 1600 score. The other thing I have to mention here is, how long do you think your English teacher takes on reading an essay that you submit? probably takes a fair amount of time, right? She wants to give you feedback. She wants to help make you a better writer. How long do you think SAT graders take on an SAT essay? 90 seconds, approximately. 90 seconds, okay? So very important that you answer the essay exactly as they're asking, putting everything in the proper format. It has to visually look appealing. That means no run-on long paragraph, right? We want to see some structure there. And it's very important that, again, you answer the question that's being asked. You have to analyze an author's argument. They don't want your opinion on an SAT essay, okay? Contrast that to an ACT essay where you're provided with a hot topic and 3 perspectives on the issue, and you have to analyze those 3 perspectives and then make your own case, present your own opinion. That's a lot different from the SAT. You're, again, making your own argument and giving specific examples to back your argument. So that's a little bit of the difference between those essays. I don't want to overstate the importance of these essays. In fact, many colleges will freely admit that they don't look at these essays. There are far better ways to evaluate how well a student writes, particularly the personal statements on the college applications. So again, nothing to freak out about for those of you on the call who might be nervous about writing an essay in a short period of time. Okay, so we've talked about when to take the test. And again, I punch to the point, these are tests that test how well you take the test. But regardless of whether you take the ACT, you take the SAT, or both, you must prepare. And junior year is a rigorous year with AP exams and SAT subject tests and homework and extracurricular activities. So the earlier you start planning, the better. And sophomores, so this is all just all the sophomores and parents of sophomores on the call. You may not realize it, but this is the first year in history of SAT testing that there's going to be an August test date. So by the last day of sophomore year, your child actually has all the content knowledge needed in order to do well on the SAT and the ACT. And what so many students are actually already doing is prepping over the summer going into junior year when they don't have to worry about homework, school, extracurricular activities. They can dedicate themselves 100% to preparation and knock it out of the park early junior year. So it's a growing strategy. I see it in my line of work. More and more students are doing that. Well, now, with the August test date, I anticipate more and more rising juniors are going to be going the route of summer prep because they're going to be able to, again, put everything into preparing for that SAT, knock it out of the park on August 26th, and then start junior year with some peace of mind that they jumped over a pretty huge hurdle that that they know is, you know, in their future. So again, preparation and planning are key. Start thinking about testing and testing timeline and how and when you're going to prepare for these. Students struggle with the SAT and the ACT, and you know, we talked about some of this, but take a look. Look at some of the differences between your typical high school exam versus your SAT and ACT. So the SAT and ACT is designed so you can't finish or you have to rush, which I kind of made mention of earlier. Versus, again, your high school history teacher creates a test and they're going to make it generously designed so you can finish the test because they want you to finish the test. Take a look at the difference in content. SAT, ACT covers years. High school exams cover chapters. Okay, I won't go through each of these. You're going to get this PowerPoint at the end of the presentation. So you can see that, again, significant differences in how content is tested, and it's the how that trips students up. So I want to talk to you about a key strategy here, pacing. All right. So for all the high school students on the call, and if you are a parent, pull your high school student over to the screen right now because I'm going to teach you a strategy that you can implement tomorrow and it's going to yield results. And this is something we teach in our courses and our tutorials. So you have your typical math section, all right? And this is little bunny foo-foo, your average high school student. Your average high school student has been taught that they need to finish the test. If they don't finish the test, they're not going to get a great grade. So there are 58 questions. They attempt all 58. And they are freaking out. They're rushing, and they're probably making careless mistakes along the way and spending a whole lot of time on the most difficult questions, because there are 3 flavors of questions: easy, medium, and difficult questions on the SAT. And they're blowing through the easy questions, making careless errors on the easy questions, to spend a whole lot of time on the difficult questions where the odds are stacked against them. So this student gets 26 correct, translates to 540 on the SAT. All right? Slow and steady wins the race. All right? So this is an actual pacing strategy. We identify and we help students identify the easier and medium problems and have them slow down and spend time on those. And I told you, you can these are designed so that you can not finish each section and actually still get a good score. So you slow down and you say, you know what? I'm only going to attempt 38 out of 58. Literally, I'm not going to attempt 20 questions on the math section, and just slow down and go for 38. And you slow down, and guess what? You get 30 correct because you weren't making careless mistakes. That translates to a 580. Now, I'm not saying you don't answer the rest of the questions, okay? This is a legitimate strategy. We teach letter of the day. So for those other questions, let's say you pick C, okay? And for those of you who have taken a PSAT or an SAT, you know you have 4 answer choices, A through D. So if you stick with one letter of the day, and you go straight down the line, 20 questions, what are your odds of blindly getting the right answer? 1 in 4. Okay? So the statistics are in your favor in your 20 guesses, again, you're not randomly guessing, you're sticking with a single letter. The statistics are in your favor to get another 4 correct. Turns to 34 raw score, a 610. So this is why I tell students, listen, pacing, slowing down can easily account for 100 points. Easily account for 100 points on the test. All right? So again, this is one of those big picture strategies you can implement tomorrow and you will increase your score. Okay. So I want to make sure we leave time for questions, so I just have like 2 more slides, and then I'm hoping that we have some great questions coming in through the chat box, and I will spend time answering those questions. But I wanted to make mention that, of course, this is what we do. We offer options, every budget, every schedule, on every budget, tutoring classes online. And we've been doing this for over 30 years. And, you know, test taking requires skill. It's something you can learn, and we've got all the options. These 2 pictures here were taken from video lessons on the Princeton Review online student portal. So the online student portal is filled with additional tests and drills for you to practice outside of your tutorial or your class. And these are actual teachers teaching real lessons who walk you through concepts. And this is just one part of the online student portal, which you get being part of our courses and our tutoring. Our program works. We've seen thousands of success stories. I think the number for last year was 1.4 million students used the Princeton Review in our various platforms and online and live online. And our goal has always been to help students get the highest scores possible by teaching valuable skills and strategies. This is a marathon. Okay, so we have the best coaches in the business, and we're here for you every step of the way. Again, I'm excited to help over 1 million more students in 2017 get into their top choice dream schools. I thank you for your time. With that, I know Anna has been hard at work reviewing all of the questions that have been coming through in the chat box. So take it away, Anna. I'm going to do my best to respond to those questions.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for all of that information. I know that's a lot to digest this evening, under an hour, but we hope that it gave you some direction, some answers to your questions. And so just to also help out some of the folks that have attended this evening, I am picking out some questions for us to review, and hopefully that also helps everyone listening in tonight. So one of the first questions, and Chris, I know we get this a lot when we're out doing our presentations and talking to folks at our schools, but someone had asked if you could spend a moment to just explain what an SAT subject test is and how that differs from the SAT.
Sure. So the SAT offers subject tests, which are 1 hour in length, and in very specific categories like history, like math level 1 and 2, like literature. Okay, so a whole host of subjects, and you can sit it for up to 3 of them in a given administration, and at any SAT test administration, you also have the ability to sign up for, again, 1 or 2 of these exams. My best advice here is if you're in an honors or AP course, let's say you're taking honors or AP history, you would sign up for an SAT subject test in history as you're preparing for the AP exam, and take it at the end of the school year. So June is a very popular time to knock out a subject test. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman, a sophomore, or a junior. It really matters, when you're taking the subject, when you're going to be best prepared. I know a lot of freshmen, for instance, take AP Bio and then knock out an SAT subject test in Bio at the end of their freshman year. But word of caution, just always do your research, look at the colleges you're interested in and what they require, and some of them will say that they require or prefer that you submit a couple subject tests, and if that's the case, then you're going to want to play to your strengths.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, another question that we had was in regards to super scoring SATs and ACTs, and just do colleges, I think most people know that SAT, you could SAT super score, but the question is, do colleges or can students super score an ACT?
Yes. So that's an excellent question. I'm glad someone thought of that. Historically, most colleges have superscored the SAT, meaning they take the highest section score from different administrations. So they'll take the best math and the best reading writing score and put it together for the total SAT score. Most colleges historically looked only at the composite ACT score, so that overall average ACT score. But what we're seeing is that more and more schools are now super scoring the ACT, meaning you can actually create a new average score by taking the ACT on different dates. So you can actually check out princetonreview.com because we have a complete list of the schools that will super score the ACT. Again, don't take it as a given because it's still not the majority of schools, but it is a pretty large and growing list of schools that are now super scoring the ACT. Excellent question.
Thank you. Okay, another question that we got was in regards to a student scoring a high on an ACT in their sophomore year. Should they still take it during their junior year and or into their senior year? Let's say the student received a 30 on an ACT. What would your recommendation be for continued test taking or prep if needed?
Gotcha. Okay. So, so that is one of those answers where it really depends, and it totally depends on where you want to go. So let's say a 30 on the ACT sophomore year. Excellent score, well above average, which we already discussed is 21 on the ACT. So you can kind of rest on that if you are looking at schools that where that is far surpassing and putting you well above the 75th percentile. But there is a benefit in taking the test again improving your score and submitting both. And the reason is that if you have that possibility of showing improvement, there are many admissions officers who actually love to see that. They love to see that a student got that high score, didn't rest on it, and went for it again and even beat that score, because it shows growth over time. It shows, you know, dedication to wanting to do even better than a strong performance. So again, I won't paint with a broad brush. It really is case by case, but it's a perfectly sound strategy to take the test again and see if you would beat that already high score.
Great. Okay, another question we received. Are SAT and ACT tests widely accepted across the U.S., or is there any preferential treatment based on state?
So yes, absolutely, they are accepted. There's no preference. I have a few minutes to give you a little bit of the history. So historically, the SAT dominated the coast. They dominated the SAT dominated the East and the West Coast. But if you grew up in the Midwest, you were in ACT you were in ACT country. I've spoken to parents who grew up in the Midwest and have moved over to the East Coast, and they're like, yeah, we never knew about the SAT. For us, it was all about the ACT. That was the old world, and things gradually changed to the point where, yes, they absolutely will accept the SAT or the ACT, and they absolutely show no preference for one over the other. It doesn't matter whether it's a Northeast liberal arts college or a large Southern state school. You can take one or the other, and there's no preference on the part of admissions officers.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, do you have any suggestions for homeschooled students and their preparation for either the SAT or ACT? Do we have any recommendations that we can share with them?
Yeah. So homeschool students. So while there may be a significant difference in the delivery of that core curriculum that they're receiving, namely the fact that they're receiving that curriculum in a homeschool setting versus school, I see little difference in terms of the level and type of preparation that they would need for the SAT or the ACT. Homeschool students are going to share the same challenges and the same strategies are going to work. In terms of modality, they may feel more comfortable in one of our live online courses, which they can take from the comfort of their own home. So we offer the full program that we offer in a live classroom setting. We offer that online with a live instructor in a virtual classroom. We yield the same results that we yield in an in-person setting. And if anything, maybe that would be more convenient, again, because you can go through the preparation, you could go through the classroom experience virtually, but you still have your live instructor. You still have a classroom of students. You can still have that dynamic interaction with an instructor. But again, all virtually within the comfort of your own home. So if anything, the modality would be something to consider. But again, it's the same. It's going to be the same types of strategy. Like I showed you pacing, and pacing is going to work whether you've gone into traditional, public school, private school, homeschool. That strategy is going to work. So again, I see maybe possibly a difference in modality versus actual preparation.
Great. Chris, can you do me a favor and just roll over to the last slide before we finish up with some of the last questions? I just wanted to make sure that folks got a chance to grab our promotion that we are offering for this evening. If you were interested in enrolling in any of our SAT or ACT Ultimate Classroom programs, whether it is in person or like a live online session, as Chris just explained, we are offering a $150 discount for all of you that have attended this evening on our webinar, and that special promotion code that you can use when enrolling is right there at the bottom in red, webinar 02, and that is good until the 22nd, so February 22nd, so I believe that's next Wednesday. So that discount is good until next Wednesday. And then just do me one more favor, Chris, and roll forward one more. We do have this email I want to just share with you, questions@review.com. If you want to just write it down anytime, whether it's later this evening, maybe in the middle of the night tonight, something jogs your memory, first thing in the morning, whatever it may be, if you do have any additional questions that come to mind, please know that we are here to help you. Go right ahead and send us an email, and we will get back to you with our answers as soon as we can. So, Chris, just go back to that promo code so we can leave that on the screen. I just want to make sure folks grab that. And we'll go ahead and finish up the last few minutes here with a few more questions. And so since we were talking about prep, one of the questions that we did get, Chris, tonight was if we could give sort of a timeline or of when would be the best time or time period for a student to start preparing for the SAT or the ACT.
Excellent question. And, you know, we do offer sample timelines that we can share, but I think the bottom line and the easiest way for me to answer that question on this call is that you don't necessarily want to start too early. So I wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of money and time in freshman or sophomore year. But I do think that, again, what I mentioned during the webinar is that you have all the content you need to know that you need in order to do well on the test by the last day of sophomore year. So why not spend the time over the summer to really, immerse yourself in preparing for the SAT or the ACT and then knock it out either in August or early in junior year? Because keep in mind, as you progress through junior year, that's when the level of difficulty amps up in your courses, particularly if you're taking some AP or honors courses. That's when, as you get to the end of the year, finals come around and junior prom and all these things that gets really busy towards the end of junior year. So I think a great plan is to start early, to knock it out early. And another thing I like to say is that, you prep hard, prep as hard as you can so that you can knock it out of the park in one shot. You should plan to take it twice so that you can see if you can beat that initial score. You should never take the test more than 3 times. So leave enough time so that you can, if you need to, take the test no more than 3 times. And it's going to vary. That timeline itself is going to vary for each student because some students are in extracurricular activities that get very busy, or sports, that get very busy at a very particular time of year. So the answer I would give someone who plays basketball is going to be a heck of a lot different from the answer I would say I would give to someone who plays baseball. This is stuff we do. We work. I mean, obviously, you have your school counselors, so you can work with them. But we have advisors, we have experts who do this day in and day out and advise students. So a little plug for 800-2-REVIEW. You can call 1-800-2-REVIEW to talk to someone on our team who's an expert in kind of customizing test-taking timelines and help you work through a personalized prep plan that works for you.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Do we also have any recommendations for whether students can simultaneously prepare for the ACT and SAT?
Yes, and in fact, so simultaneous prep. So a great option is to start with one, like the SAT, and then what we do at the Princeton Review is we offer something called crossover tutoring, which gets you up to speed on the key differences in strategy. So, so there's less difference now with the redesign of the SAT. So a lot of what you're going to learn for one test will actually translate well to another test. So in a sense, in prepping for one test, you kind of are doing simultaneous prep. But again, you're going to want that little bit of extra preparation, whether it's in the form of another ACT course, if you take the SAT, an ACT course or tutorial, or again, something called crossover tutoring, which we offer, which isn't a full comprehensive program because you've already been through that, but it's a shorter time frame where we just hone in on the key things that you have to keep in mind when taking that other test, whether it's the SAT or the ACT.
Great, thanks, Chris. And another question that we received, probably have time for maybe one or two more, was if you could talk to slow readers as testers, which test might be better for students in that situation?
Okay, great question. I can sympathize because I am a slow reader. So it's tough to answer without knowing exactly what is causing a student to read slower than average. Generally, SAT question types are a lot more wordy, even on the math. And in fact, we're seeing SAT math questions where there's a whole lot of verbiage before you even figure out what the question is asking. So that's something to consider. However, you're given, on the ACT, you're given far less time per question. So there's a bit of a rub there. So my best advice here is to take a practice test of each. We offer these for free, and in fact, I'm going to take the last minute here to plug Rock the Test Weekend. So we are blanketing the country with live free practice SATs and ACTs the weekend of April 1st and 2nd. So you can go online and sign up for these and try it out. See if you are a slow reader and then you know that about yourself. Is that going to negatively impact you on one test over another? You might be surprised. Maybe it's not going to be as big of a deal as you had thought, but there's really no way of knowing unless you actually sit for a practice test.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And so we're just at the 9 o'clock hour, and I want to be considerate with everyone's time. So I'm going to say we're going to end it there. I thank everyone for joining us this evening. If you do have any additional questions that you wanted to get over to us for us to help you out with, please go ahead and send that to our email address, questions@review.com. Don't forget, we do have this awesome promotion for you. Webinar 02 is the promo code, and that'll get you $150 off our SAT and ACT Ultimate courses. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And as a reminder, everyone, that has registered for this evening's session, and for those of you that attended, you will be receiving a recording of this entire session within 24 hours after this evening. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening or day, and we will hopefully talk to you soon. Have a great day.